Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Adubato. We kick off the show with Mr. Robert Sinclair Jr., Senior Manager of Public Affairs at AAA Northeast. Good to see you, Mr. Sinclair.
Good to see you. Thanks very much for having me.
You got it. Hey, listen, we're doing this as the summer gets underway in New Jersey. You'll be seen a little bit later as well. Travel. You cannot turn on a media program or social media, whatever it is, that more and more people want to travel at this point, particularly given cooped up 2.5 years, COVID, et cetera. Does the ability to travel, desire to travel, match up with the ability to travel, particularly with gas prices being what they are?
Well, there's a strong desire for people to travel these days, having been cooped up for these 2 years. And it looks like if you're going to drive to your destination, despite high gasoline prices, you're not going to have much of a problem. We're seeing demand that was higher for Memorial Day week by about 220,000 barrels to a total of 386 million gallons per day, every day. And that was higher compared to the week before. And going into the 4th of July holiday, we are anticipating record car travel, the most people driving to their destination ever for the holiday. And this is despite the fact that gasoline prices approach $5 per gallon in many states or exceed $5 per gallon. So it looks like the demand is very strong. If you're going to fly, you might have a problem because the airlines got rid of a lot of people during the pandemic, and now there's an insufficient number of pilots, there's an insufficient number of cabin crew available. They even don't have enough people to staff the terminals at the gates. So it's a tough situation, and really it looks like folks are kind of voting with their feet, if you will, and driving to their destinations for the 4th of July.
You know, I appreciate that we're taping this right before the 4th of July, be seen later. But here's the other thing. You said it doesn't seem to be a problem for anyone, but is it not a disproportionate problem for people in lower income communities, people disproportionately Black and brown, disproportionately people who struggle to make ends meet? $5 a gallon for gas, but then they talk about on top of that, the reality of cars cost more. It is a real challenge and problem for many, is it not?
Well, it is, without a doubt. And when I say it's not a problem, I mean for that particular holiday. But for a lot of people, it is a problem. In fact, we did a driver survey back in March. We asked people what the pain point was for the price of gasoline, and 75% said $5 a gallon. And we're there. 60% said $4 a gallon. If you go back to March of 2018, 40% said $3 a gallon. So even if we went back to $3 a gallon, there would be a problem for 40% of the population trying to pay for gasoline at $5 a gallon. It's really difficult. Drivers are coping by driving less. They are, if they're under 35, carpooling. If they're over, they're combining their errands with their commute. They're not eating out as much, if at all, and they're putting off the purchase, a major purchase like an appliance. So most families don't have the elasticity in their budgets to deal with fluctuating gasoline prices such as we're seeing, but everything is fluctuating now and higher. So it's a really tough situation for a lot of people. And I just worry that a lot of folks are living paycheck to paycheck or running up credit card debt in order to be able to afford gasoline to get back and forth to work.
Let me ask you, as you're not an expert on politics, public policy, or international affairs, but if you were to say the primary reasons why gas prices are out of control, and President Biden calls it Russian President Vladimir Putin's gas price crisis. There are OPEC issues, Saudi issues. There are people who take advantage of this situation by charging higher rates. If you were to say the primary reason or reasons for gas prices being exorbitantly high, what would they be?
Well, even before the war in Ukraine started, there were problems keeping up with demand. A lot of refineries got shut down during the pandemic. Oil drilling rigs got shut down. And in fact, April 20th of 2020, they were paying you to take crude oil off their hands. Now the economy's come roaring back after we have gotten over COVID. And I would say now, without a doubt, the main reason is the war in Ukraine. Russia is a major producer of crude oil, upwards of 9 or 10 or 11 million barrels per day. And global daily consumption is about 100 million barrels per day. So you're taking 10% of the market off the market with the sanctions on the part of the European Union and the United States. And so that 90% that's left has to be distributed among all the nations, and suddenly it becomes more valuable and more expensive. So if we could stop this war and return to political and market stability, that would go a long way to helping with gasoline prices such as what we're seeing. But in the meantime, there are all sorts of things being talked about, particularly limiting U.S. exports, because we produce a lot of crude oil, but we use more than we produce.
But Mr. Sinclair,
We're sending oil out. So we.
Sorry for interrupting, but isn't
Sure.
there a conundrum here in this sense? On one hand, there's more and more pressure to reduce our carbon footprint, to reduce our focus on fossil fuel. That being said, hey, let's move to electric cars. Well, we're not moving fast enough. We got to keep going in that direction. Then all of a sudden, you've got many, not just Republicans and Donald Trump, but others who are saying, hey, wait a minute, we should be taking advantage of the oil reserves we have, the places where we can drill. Let's be less dependent on Russia. Let's be less dependent on the Saudis. Don't those two different mindsets conflict with each other?
Well, part of the problem is the fact that you could pull all the oil out of the ground in the United States that you could, and you might not have enough refineries in order to process it into gasoline. You don't have enough truck drivers to drive the trucks to get the gasoline to the stations. So these are ongoing problems. But really, ultimately, if the war were to stop and we'd get that market stability, that would help a lot. Look, I'm reading a lot today about the fact that not only in the United States, but in particularly in Europe, which depends very heavily on Russian crude oil and natural gas, that they're talking about restarting coal-fired power plants. And, for at least a temporary basis, they're saying that, well, carbon footprint and all these other global warming things are just going to have to be put aside because we're going to have to stay warm during the approaching winter. And if we have to burn coal to do so, we're going to do it. So a lot of things are being turned topsy-turvy as a result of this ongoing conflict and the problems that it's creating with the availability of crude oil, and as a result, the price.
So clearly the folks at AAA are thinking about a lot more than getting cars on the road or traffic or no traffic, et cetera.
Yeah, and all the talk about switching to electric vehicles, the grid is not ready. You can't make the Great American Road Trip with an electric vehicle without a lot of detailed planning. And the average transaction price for an electric vehicle right now is $61,000. So how are we going to save money when the fuel might not be available, quote unquote, for the electric vehicle wherever you go? And buying an electric vehicle is super expensive. Conventional vehicles are expensive, new and used. There's just seemingly no way around all these problems that we're seeing.
Listening to Robert Sinclair Jr., Senior Manager of Public Affairs, AAA Northeast. Mr. Sinclair, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your perspective.
Thank you very much for having me.
You guys stay with us. We'll be right back.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare. RWJ Barnabas Health, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Choose New Jersey. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. The Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey. New Jersey Sharing Network. Summit Health. And by Investors Bank. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network. And by Meadowlands Chamber.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sharif El-Nahal. Did you know that there are nearly 4,000 New Jerseyans waiting for a life-saving transplant? And 67% of those people are people of color. Just one organ and tissue donor can save 8 lives and enhance the lives of over 75 people. Let's come together to raise awareness in our diverse communities. Donation needs diversity. You have the power to make a difference. For more information or to become an organ and tissue donor, visit www.njsharingnetwork.org.